You have found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, me and Patrick will be discussing Marko Simonovic being released by the Chicago Bulls. We'll also ask, should the Bulls focus more on player development? And lastly, do the Chicago Bulls still have a big swing left in them during free agency? We're going to get into all that, plus some more topics on today's episode of Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. That is Patrick the Designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze and host of the Chicago Bears podcast over at ESPN 1000. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central. And as you guys can see, that dig 'em in joke got us locked in, man. We're
locked in on Locked On.
Corporate Haize and Patrick the Designer in the building today. But nonetheless, Pat, the Bulls finally did.
How long we taking this? I can't do it.
Hey, man, listen.
Hey, they can't hold us down, bro.
Every once in a while,
unbutton the jacket, bro.
Every once in a while, you got to dig them out, bro. It is what it is, man. Like, they can't stop us.
Hey, Haize, listen. That's what the suit is for. That's what the suit is for.
Nonetheless, man, Pat, one of the things that we have been expecting for so long this offseason is Marko Simonovic to be waived by the Chicago Bulls. They made it official today. It was the last day that they had to guarantee his deal. They do end up releasing him from that contract. How you feeling, Pat?
I mean, listen, we knew this was coming. I'm not surprised by this. I don't even know if we have 10 minutes on this, but we're going to make it happen because this is what the corporate life does. I mean, listen, He took 6 shots in his Chicago Bulls career. I ran more on the floor than he did. And I got dunked on less. So, you know, I mean, like, I'm not surprised by this. Would I be surprised if Marko finds his home somewhere else and he fits in perfectly and all of a sudden somebody figures out, yeah, I mean, like all this other stuff. No, I wouldn't be surprised by it. But I just think that, listen, we've seen this before. Billy Donovan clearly didn't like him. Billy Donovan clearly didn't trust him. There was something in practice where there was a disconnect. It is what it is. I'm not surprised to see Marko gone. I'm not even that upset to see Marko gone, but I think we'll see what his career ends up being. I hope that he has an NBA career. I hope that he does get an opportunity somewhere. I'm not petty, and I want to see this man's life like go down the drain and he never gets a shot. But I mean, listen, I think in my first Marko video, when I looked at him overseas, there was nothing that wowed me about him. There was the shooting ability.
Yeah.
There was being the stretch 5 kind of guy. There was a shooting ability. I got to go back and look at it actually, but I believe I talked about how he needed more size, needed more agility handling the basketball, but that he looked like he could pass and shoot. We never saw that play out. At the end of the day, he's a 2nd round pick too, so it's not that big of a deal. Like it's more irritating because AK gave him the 3 years than the 2.
Because and that's the biggest thing for me too. Like the moment that they decided to release him from this contract, the thing that I went to is that, hey, imagine had you given that deal to Ayo Dosunmu, we would even be right now. We'd have Ayo Dosunmu on a $1.8 million deal. Rather than be looking at right now, potentially, you know, a $5 million qualifying offer. Like, Ayo should have had that 3-year deal, but I understand it, right? You wanted to give him some security, possibly, especially since he was coming over here from overseas. I understand all of that, but like, it just really points towards like, Marko just never, like 16 games. He got into 16 games over the course of 2 seasons, and it only averaged, I think it was like 1.8 minutes per game. Like, it's bad. It was bad. And so because of that, it's like, hey, it is what it is, man.
Here's the thing that to me, right, that I'll ask you. Is it more problematic that a guy that you gave a real contract to can't get in the game based on the coach who just seemed like he didn't exist, right? Like, you didn't even try him out.
Yeah.
You didn't even like. There were moments. Listen, we've been down bad. We've been down bad at the center position. We've been to the point where we had Javonte Green starting at the 5. Like starting.
4.
No, remember
Javonte?
remember when
Javonte
Vooch had
started at the
COVID?
5?
Remember when Vooch had COVID?
That was Derrick Jones Jr. starting at the 5.
Was it DJJ?
Yeah, DJJ was starting at the 5 because that's when him and Lonzo had that dangerous pick and roll going for a little while.
Well, listen, same thing. Bad. It's not. I mean, it's small ball, all of that, but like you're looking at a 6'6" guy. Like you can't find a time to try and throw that guy in there. I think that to me, this is more of a indictment on the coaching staff, more on the development that the Bulls have had. And we'll talk more about development in the second topic. But the fact that you're not even trying at a certain point, right? Like most guys get trial by fire. He never even got trial by fire. Yeah. He never even got. Let's see if he sinks or swims. They were just like, hey, he can't play. Like that's a problem to me.
Yeah, I mean it's when you, and the fact of the matter is that once Marko spent his whole entire second year down in the G League, and you could tell he was gaining nothing down there from being in the G League anymore. My man was averaging 18 and 10, looking like looking like the G League Jokic, and you couldn't get on the NBA court. That to me was like, all right, bet. So if he showed you that in the G League, and there were some times where him and Dalen Terry worked themselves into a hell of a chemistry. If you could not get him even looks where we needed some size, whatever, when Drummond was out with his mental health things going on, when Derrick Jones Jr. wrist is in perpetual injury, like if you couldn't even see the court at that point in time, that to me, the story was written. They don't see a future for you on this roster. And
that's my problem with it, right? Like I feel like that's the case with everybody. Like it's to me, I'm more okay with it because it's Marko, right? Like I'm not tripping at the fact that Marko Simonovic is not a part of the Bulls anymore. I'm just not. But that's the same thing that we've seen with Patrick Williams at times. It's the same thing that we've seen with Kobe White at times. Same thing that we've seen with Dalen Terry his entire career to this point, right? Like his rookie year at least. That's all he's got. Like that's the theme of this. That's not surprising to me. Heck, it's the same thing that we've seen with Andre Drummond in stretches. It's the same thing there's too many players where I can point at where I literally say this guy just doesn't get on the floor. And there are times where he's needed, and I don't know why. And I feel like that's more often than not. And I'm not saying that was Marko, but that kind of philosophy still goes into it because we've been down to the point where we're playing 3s and 4s at the center. And yeah, maybe Marko does suck. Maybe Marko does go out there and get his head kicked in. But he's doing it on an NBA court. At least we're seeing if he's going to get his head kicked in. We never even saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing with I don't want to act like Marko's this horrible person who has no NBA future. I'm just going to ask you this. Do you think that Marko, does he go away? Because we've seen European players, sometimes they go back to Europe for a couple of years. They shine there again, kind of work their value back up, and maybe a team bring him over, and he's still only 23, 24 years old. Could come back when he's 26, 27. Like we've seen Vasilije Micic come over recently with the OKC Thunder. Could we see Marko go away, or do you think there's going to be a team, considering there's still a lot of teams with a lot of cap space that are tanking / developing teams that aren't focused on winning right now? Could a team take a look at Marko and say, listen, we saw you put up 20 and 10 in the G League. We want to see if you can even put up 15 and 8 for us at the NBA level. Do you think that happens?
I feel like if that were going to happen, you would have seen. I think that's why Marko has ended up getting cut so late. Because if that was going to happen, I at least in my opinion, I would think that the Bulls were kind of like, hey, listen, we're going to hold on to you. We'll try and wait it out. See if you can find somebody that can be a trade partner. See if you can find somebody that really sees an interest in your skill set, and then we'll move on from you. And you'll be able to sign with their G League team, or at least play for their G League team. At $1.8 million, what you got to lose?
Well, the thing is,
if I sign you to my team, I'm paying you more than $1.8 million probably.
I mean, no, because his minimum would still be less than $2 million.
I guess he could give vet men basically.
Yeah. So I mean, he could that's the thing. I don't think any team's gonna look at the Bulls and say, hey, listen, we know you're about to waive this dude, and say, hey, we ain't not giving you no assets to try to get him. Let's just wait and see what the Bulls do. Like I said, I look at the Spurs. They're definitely a team. Heck, The Utah Jazz, they don't have any roster spots. Their roster's pretty much filled. But there are teams out there that could look at Marko and say, listen, at the bare minimum, maybe their G League affiliate, maybe a two-way deal. Like, we'll end up seeing, I think more than likely he's going to go back over to Europe for a little while, and he's probably going to win MVP. And then everybody will be saying, oh, do you remember when we had Marko Simonovic? Yeah. And we'll see if he ends up making his way back to the NBA. For him, young guy, has some talent. I hope that he does end up coming back to the NBA.
I think it all comes down to where you rank the G League over overseas play. If you've got overseas play is tougher than the G League, then yeah, I would agree with you. If you've still got American basketball above how they're playing overseas, then it's like, hey, listen, he was cooking down here. He's going to go back home and probably cook.
Yeah.
But he couldn't cook at the NBA level. But it's also, again, it's tough. I don't know if he can cook at the NBA level. He's 16 games. That's crazy. 16 games.
16 games and probably a combined maybe 22 minutes in those 16 games.
You know what I mean? Like that's a deeper issue for me, that you put him into 16 games and you didn't allow him to play in games where you let Patrick Williams go off.
Yeah.
The games where we don't
That's
care
a great
about
point
this,
too. The Minnesota game for a couple of seasons. Yeah. Hey, I mean, we'll see, man. Ultimately, like I said, I hope the best for Marko Simonovic, and we'll end up seeing where he does go. But before we get into the next topic, which we're going to be talking about, the Bulls focus on player development, maybe going forward, and how kind of this Marko Simonovic kind of puts more of a highlight on the lack of development we've had the last couple of years. Before we do that, got to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that is BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out the brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, man.
Came in normal that time. Good music on that one.
Listen, it understands the tone, right? It understands what's going on right now. It's the suits. Yeah.
The music even understands we're corporate today.
Yeah, corporate Haize, corporate Patrick. You got to do
Patrick the Designer.
Patrick the Designer. That is hilarious.
That's so gross.
But with this said, and with the Bulls still having a lot of young players now, Marko's gone. But we still got now Adama Sanago. We still got Julian Phillips. We still got Dalen Terry. We still got Patrick Williams. Still got Kobe White. Potentially Ayo Dosunmu. That's 6 players out of a 15-man roster that still have considerable development to go. Right. Yeah. Do you think that this move away from Marko does this remind or kind of reinvigorate management, which they've already hired a head of player development, but do they focus now more on player development than what they've had the last couple of years?
I think I almost think you have to, right? Mm-hmm. Because here's my issue. Some of the names that have been thrown out there, right? Watford's a name that's now on the list after being waived by the Portland Trailblazers. You just drafted Julian Phillips. If you go out and sign Watford and you give him the minutes that you could have potentially given to Julian Phillips, what are you trying to develop Julian Phillips into if it's not what Watford is and the potential of what he can be? Like, I think there's always this conversation of, I want that guy that's already developed. I want that guy that's already done. I want this guy. Let's go get this guy. Let's add this. But there's never a conversation of, hey, why don't we fix some of the stuff that we got here that seems like it was drafted for that skill set? Mm-hmm. You're not even getting guys to a point where they're competent NBA players. Like Patrick Williams and Kobe White, they're bottom tier role players in the NBA right now. Like, they're not even like solid role players. They're guys.
Yeah.
You haven't developed them into somebody that we can trust night in and night out. Like, and so for me, I look at all of these names that we can go get. What are you drafting for? What are you going out? Why are you going back into the draft? Right? You trade back into the draft. Why are you signing Adama Sanago undrafted?
Yeah.
Why? Like, those are the things to me that at a certain point, you just got to, you have to start doing things in-house. And the teams that usually win, the teams that win the most, usually do develop some of their younger talent, some of their younger players, and they turn them into those stars. Remember, Giannis was not Giannis. I don't think people really remember this. Giannis was not Giannis. Giannis was easy to beat every year for the Chicago Bulls. We made Giannis so mad one year, he elbowed Mike Dunleavy in the ribs. After we was putting him out.
Those were the days, man.
And so to me, you have to focus on development. If you're not focusing on development, you're setting yourself up for success or for failure. And I'll say this, don't be surprised, right? You want to look at the flip side? Look at Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal. Don't be surprised if they don't win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I don't think anybody would be surprised if they don't win the championship because there's so many questions with that team. I look at it like this, like you made great points. Like you sent out future assets to bring in Julian. You saw this kid in Julian Phillips, and he was obviously somebody you wanted now, right?
Yeah.
So you have to invest in that development. And like I said, Peter Patton, hiring him was a great step in that. But we need to see, it can't just come through what we don't see. Like, yes, there's most of the development that players go through is what we don't see on the court. But that also means that they need actual development reps at an NBA level. Yeah. You could only get so far in the G League in getting those reps. Yes, they help, especially for a player that may need to acclimate things like that. That it helps. I talked about a lot last season with Dalen Terry. He was able to work on specific things in his game that he would have never been able to work on had he been in the rotation for the Chicago Bulls last season.
Definitely wouldn't have got to work on it with the Bears.
Definitely wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. Dalen could be a heck of a wide receiver.
Dalen in the slot.
Yeah. But with that said, I do think that, and that's fine. But now we need to see something at the NBA level. Like, yeah. Julian Phillips, they've hyped his defense. Like AK's talked about, like he can defend already. He can defend 4 positions today, right? Some people have you believe he's the best on-ball defender on the team now. All right, let's see it. Give the man an opportunity to earn a role. Ayo did that. Now it also came with Ayo the fact that he came into a situation where he earned minutes before, and then once Lonzo went down, he absolutely was going to go get minutes. Yeah. But we need to see the young guys put in a position. I get it. DeMar's been great for us. Zach's great for us when he's healthy. Everything. Vooch is Vooch. We know what Vooch is. He's a double-double machine, one of the best centers in the league. But they aren't your future. Well, Zach probably is. They just aren't your future. Yeah. You have to start investing in that future. I'm not saying they need to go out and get 20 shots a game, but you need to invest in that future. And if you have a head coach in Billy Donovan that doesn't see that, then something's not aligned. If Billy Donovan's vision of these players aren't aligned with what the front office's vision is, something has to give there.
I'll tell you this, Vooch can be a part of your future. You want to know why? Because his game is old as heck.
That's just true.
It's been old since he was 21. You think about, honestly, think about what the Bucks are and how they won their championship. Brook Lopez is 37 years old. He was 34 when they won. Like a lot of sometimes you have that veteran guy who is the older guy on the team, who is Al Horford's been to 3 Eastern Conference Finals in a row.
Oh, crap.
And contributed to every one.
We maybe have breaking news. So keep talking. I'm gonna check something.
We got breaking news. Hold on.
Somebody said Whoa said something on Twitter.
Hold on. Is it Baki? Did Baki say it?
If it's not Baki,
if young Baki don't say it,
it's not. We don't.
Come
see
on,
it.
dog.
It ain't real. We're gonna keep it moving. Come on, y'all gotta stop trying to get attention.
Come on,
I gotta
dog.
go check it though. Ahead,
but
bro.
no, I just here's my thing at the end of the day. You have 2 players on your team right now who have worst ever stats attached to their name. Patrick Williams took the least amount of shots of any team or of any 4th overall pick ever his rookie year. Dalen Terry played the least amount of minutes of any 18th overall pick his rookie year. Listen, I get we're trying to do the whole Tom Thibodeau thing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how it ends up working. But like, You got to give guys an opportunity. The reason that Jimmy Butler couldn't get in is because Luol Deng was already really good. There's no reason that Dalen Terry shouldn't be getting minutes when we looked at what Dalen Terry could bring to a team last season. Energy alone. After watching that team walk up and down the court dead night in and night out. And so that's an issue for me. That's an issue that I have with the coaching staff. You got to focus on development to me. You have to put the young guys out there to make plays and make mistakes. And I'll say this. What was one of Ayo Dosunmu's biggest learning points? And you remember this game.
When he got cooked by Drew Holiday?
No, he continually lets that happen. He didn't learn from that. No, remember? We were in double overtime. Or maybe just overtime. I want to say it was versus OKC. And Ayo made 2 mistakes at the end of that game that cost us the game.
Yeah.
In a row.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about.
It was the first overtime we'd ever played. It was the first overtime he'd ever played in the NBA. Next overtime we played, he was one of the best defenders in that overtime. Made the right decisions. Now, that didn't translate into year 2, but that's a whole different thing. But he learned by fire. And I feel like you have to at least see what these guys can do. The part about Marko that irks me is that we paid him for 2 years for him to cook in a G League. We didn't even get a G League championship out of it.
We did get a G League MVP with Carlik Jones. So does it offset there?
He might not even make the team.
I don't think Carlik Jones is going to be on the team, by the way.
The G League MVP can't even make the team.
I mean, listen, we are a franchise that saw Antonio Blakeney come about, so I
thought he could hoop. I thought he could hoop. But,
yeah.
And that man, here's the thing. He could hoop, but he sure couldn't play on the team.
He's probably so he just scored a 3-pointer somewhere in some random gym somewhere in America, but it's not at the NBA. It doesn't matter.
What is this comment? This comment don't even mean that. The Puerto Rican homie got a suit on.
But, all right. Next up, though, we're going to talk about the Bulls. Do they still have a big swing left to take in free agency?
Oh God,
Pat. Now with the Bulls, another thing by waiving Marko Simonovic or releasing him. This puts $1.8 million back on the Chicago Bulls books, which means now the Bulls are over $10 million underneath the luxury tax. We do have a disabled player exception that should be approved any day now of $10.1 million. All this summer, we've been talking about the fact that disabled player exception, we out here wearing suits. Wow, I swear I didn't even, that's not even why we did it. But that is, that's wow.
I very rarely do this on the podcast. Shout out to Let's Talk Bulls on YouTube. That man said we out here wearing suits to Marco's funeral.
That's crazy.
How do I
you shouldn't
say
stop.
goodbye? Let's keep it going. Oh God.
But
that's
with
funny.
that said, now the Bulls about $10 million underneath the luxury tax, still over the salary cap. This creates a little bit more room there. Still have $6 million of a mid-level exception, $4.5 million of a biannual exception. Do the Bulls have a big swing? And by big swing, I do not mean trading for a superstar. I mean relative to where we're at right now. Do they get a PJ Washington? Do they get even though I do not want to see him on this team, a Christian Wood? Do they get a Kelly Oubre? Like, do they make that type of attempt at a move left now?
Because the price is going down on guys, I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be okay with it. I think more so at the 4 position than anything. I'm not both of the guys you named, unfortunately, I think are the ones that are on the Bulls radar possibly. I mean, listen, off of the bench, I'm not going to be mad at Christian Wood being able to put up 25. Off of the bench, I'm not going to be mad at PJ Washington being able to avoid Brittany Renner. But, you know, I mean, like,
she ain't coming to the shot. She's not coming to the shot.
I'm gonna leave it alone. There was a joke there. We corporate today.
We're corporate today, bro. Take it today.
Very corporate.
Not taking Brittany Renner to the O. That's not what we're doing.
But I guess I'm still asking the same question, right? Is bringing Christian Wood in gonna make you exponentially better in the long run, or is it better to just go and ride in with the team that you have and develop your young guys?
And that's the thing. I saw a comment in there earlier that it's that, you can still win now and try to. The thing that we're saying is not that you don't still try to win now. It's simply put that you still give you like Kawhi Leonard developed on a team that was trying to win now, right? Like, and he was way down that depth chart. Yeah. Paul George, people forget Paul George was behind Danny Granger on that depth chart and developed because they gave him an opportunity. Right? We're not saying that anybody needs 15, 16 shots per game, but guess what? Run something through these guys.
He was talking about his first opportunity. I think he said it was against Carmelo. And Danny was like, hey, I'm out tonight. And he was like, ain't nothing wrong with Danny. Danny just don't want to go up against Melo. He said, Melo cooked me all night long.
That doesn't surprise me.
But I don't know, man. Like, there's not a name out there. If anything, here's what I think Bulls fans are overlooking a lot, right? We're excited now because we have our point guard, right? And knock on whatever you need to knock on to get all the bad juju out of there. But what happens if he twists his ankle? Like, where's the depth at that point guard position? Is Kobe our backup again? That's what we rolling with? Is that the answer for us? And I think that's the part where I'm still looking at the point guard position. If it means re-signing Ayo and you keep him as your backup point guard, fine. If it means going out there, like, if anything, if there's a big swing I want to see them take, because here's the realistic thing I need people to understand. Billy Donovan's not playing 7-footers outside of Vooch. We all okay with that now? We get that? They're going to go out and they're going to sign another 6'9" guy. He's going to be 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan. He can scratch his knees without bending over.
Just because you said that, they're signing Bol. Like, it's happening. Just because you said that.
Hey, okay. You signed a 7-footer. Like, I'd be, is he going to play him?
That's the biggest question. Is Billy Donovan going to play whoever it is?
You know what I mean? So for me, this is one of those situations where I look at this and I'm like, yeah, I would like to go out and get a big man. But at the end of the day, I'm still looking at the point guard position. I'm still looking at point guard depth. If you keep Ayo Dosunmu, I love it. If you don't have that, though, what's the reason that we're in this situation right now where we're like a point guard's.
Yeah. Because, I mean, God forbid it knock on something. Anything happened to Javon Carter, like you said, a twisted ankle, we're right back where we were last season. We're right back with Ayo Dosunmu as the starting point guard. And maybe Ayo, Alex, whoever it ends up being, but like we're right back where we were. We don't have a lot of true point guard depth. And that it seems like we go into every season we go into something where a position is extremely thin. The first season that this team came together, it was center. We had Tony Bradley as the backup center, and we learned very early in that season Tony Bradley was nothing. Yeah. And we were very thin there. Then we end up losing.
Hey, Tony had that West Coast trip. He's always got that West Coast trip. Well, and he was cooking on that West Coast trip.
It was that one game that Tony Bradley had a double-double in like the first 12 minutes of the game. And I was like, hey, this is crazy.
Hey, Tony Bradley was cooking on that West Coast trip, bro. I just remember going, who bag did he steal on the plane, bro? Like, what's happening right now?
and he promptly gave it back. TSA
he gave
said,
it back,
hey, sir.
Well, Steven Adams took it.
That's very accurate there, brother.
And he gave it to Ja, and Ja put the pistol in it. Too far. All right. Okay.
Wait a second.
It was a long play, Joe.
That's not very corporate there, Patrick.
Sorry. We're corporate. We gotta.
There you go. Thank you once again. But with that said, like, it just ultimately the way that I look at it is this. Regardless of who we bring in, it doesn't matter if Billy Donovan doesn't play them. Yeah. And that goes back to what we said before. Like, I do think that the Bulls may try to do something. I want to, before we go, I do want to warn everybody too. I want to be very clear. That disabled player exception may not be used until the trade deadline.
I said
be prepared for that. Because I know everybody's going to think the moment we get it approved and then 2 days go by and we don't use it, it's going to be AK wasted another asset. It may very well wait until the trade deadline until he uses that. So we'll see.
Jerry, get out of here, Jerry. What are you doing
No,
here, Jerry?
we want him here now. He may be
Jerry's
interviewing
here
for
the
the
money.
Jerry Network.
My bad.
Yeah, don't worry.
My
about
bad.
it. Don't worry.
Jerry, I thought he was trying to sneak in. He was going to convince me to sign a $6 million deal by telling me not to do
it. But yeah, man, anything left before we get out of here, Pat?
Nah, man. I mean, I think that we put on a very professional episode today. We didn't joke around at all, and I think that this will get you back in the good graces of the powers that be. Nick, don't fire him. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. Make sure to tip your waitresses. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. Follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Hit me up on Threads, and we'll threading the needle out here. Come on now.
There you go. There you go. You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. That's even on Threads as well. But this has been Locked On Bulls. Make sure you guys continue to stay locked in with us. We want to thank you for tuning in and making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. Locked On Bulls is also free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube and the Odyssey app. For Pat the Designer, I am Cordero, and we want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On
Government's
Bulls.
out there.
Peace, y'all.
Hey, we made it through, dog. We out this jam.
Get the tie off, damn it.
Get the tie off. We out this jam now. What did somebody say? Go get Wendell Carter?